New book. Kayavan Rising. The Kayavan Chronicles, Book 1. Written by Maria Grace. Narrated by Benjamin Fife. Chapter 1. Leaves and debris swirled around her, caught in the irresistible grip of the level 4 winds. Dark clouds roiled overhead, blackening the sky to nearly midnight. Ozone, humidity, and anxiety permeated the atmosphere, driving all sensible creatures into hiding. That said a great deal about her right there, didn't it?
Ari Lynn Lysand, get inside now!
Mama shouted from the front door of the tiny, egg-shaped pod house, her voice barely audible over the roaring tempest.
And right here, making sure the storm shutters stay tight this time.
Ari tightened the lock nut on the gray steel shutters, a final quarter turn, slipped her tools back into her belt kit, and fought her way through the first burst of cold rain to the front door. Mama slid it shut behind her, leaving a spreading puddle in its wake.
Is that any way for a full-grown woman to act, riding the storm's edge like that?
She parked her hands on her hips, wind-whipped hair clinging to the side of her face. Everyone said she and Mama looked too much alike. Petite. No, that was what polite folks said. Ari was just short and angular, without Mama's soft curves. With sharp, clear brown eyes and tousled dark curls, sometimes looking at Mama was like looking at a perpetually irritated version of herself.
What do you expect? What do you expect? You're the one who likes to remind me I was born on the day Kayavan's star began rising. More or less guaranteed I'd always be on the edge of a storm 'cause of that.
Ari ran her fingers through her mop of damp curls, slinging drops of water on the smooth industrial gray flooring.
I'll never forget the fierce storm that day. Seems like there's always been a storm following you.
Mama smiled and shook her head.
Get yourself cleaned up before you take a chill. I'll make us some tea.
Tea. Lovely. That meant she wanted to talk. And not the pleasant sort of companionable chat to while away a stormy evening. Tea meant there were serious things to be said, things Ari probably didn't want to hear. Sighing, she crossed the few steps from the front door to the tiny bathroom. Every surface wore white tile, while glaring 2 white lights glinted off the polished finish. Barely large enough to accommodate the necessary toilet, sonic cleaning station, and a bare-bones clothing recycler that should have been upgraded years ago. Efficient seemed insufficient to describe the level of function crammed into so small a space. Ari tossed her work clothes into the recycler and set it to print up something soft and comfortable, which would help her sit through Mama's upcoming lecture. Yes, Mama had suggested it would be a conversation, but Ari's perspective definitely wouldn't be welcome. The sonic shower drowned out the sound of the howling winds, replacing it with the itchy, prickly sense of scavenger ants crawling along every inch of her skin. She rubbed her bare shoulders with both hands, but the sensation persisted. It might not be so bad if she actually felt clean after the sonics, but only the faint dust left on the floor after it was done gave her any indication she wasn't leaving the stall unchanged. Maybe she'd go out in the rain before it got too much worse, just for the sense of a proper cleansing. Someday she'd be able to afford the luxury of a real water shower. When the shower stopped, the howling winds resumed, and storm-driven debris slammed into the side of the house, hard enough to feel like the house would roll with the impact. That wasn't going to happen. The anchor points, which gave way in order to absorb impact, would only go so far. They would hold fast against the storm. At least they always had in the past. There had been a lot of storms to hold fast against. 3 steps out of the bathroom, almost into the cramped living room, Mama handed her a mug of tea, not a cup, suggesting this was going to be a long conversation. Excellent. Mama didn't like things on the wall or decorations cluttering up the place, so there were none. With the windows shuttered and the lights turned on to full brightness, the room felt sterile, cold, and sparse. The pungent industrial cleansers Mama used did little to dispel that sense. She beckoned Ari to join her on the worn couch. Ari would rather have curled up on the ragged chair across the room. Even if it was hardly farther away than the other side of the couch, it still felt like there was more breathing room there.
I swear the wind sounds like the hellcat's roar, calling departed souls out to walk Lethe's wood.
Lethe's. Calling.
Calling departed souls out to walk Lethe's woods.
Mama glanced over her shoulder at the shuttered window.
To find their final place of rest?
Ari drew her knees up close to her chest, wrapping her arms around them to cradle her tea. The familiar lumps and bumps The familiar lumps and bumps of the old dirt-brown couch only served to remind her she was about to get a lot more uncomfortable.
You say that every time the storms come at the comet's appearance. Why are you so attached to those old myths? Kayavan's star, dear, you have to get it right. When his star rises, he sends the storms to keep Pogo, the arch-soul-catcher, and his soul-catcher minions from dragging the newly awakened souls to Abaddon's gates.
Mama winked. She really loved those stories.
What I've never understood is why the storms would hold back the soul-catchers, but still allow the souls to find their way to Roke, the arch-keyminder, and his minions at the Great Maze. Do you always need an explanation for everything? Haven't you ever wondered how anyone can be prepared to answer Roke's question to enter the maze leading to Celios? Or to answer the lesser keyminders at the maze's every junction to finally earn the key to Celios? And another thing. All right, Arlie girl, that's enough. Why do you always do this?
Mama set her mug on the tiny steel table next to her side of the couch.
It's like you intentionally look for storms to lead in, like the early fireflies that came out to warn us this storm was coming, right?
A loud thump, something frighteningly large, hit the house.
Why do you always tell me that? Why am I always at fault when someone doesn't like what I say?
Or think, or feel.
That's what we need to talk about.